Hi, and welcome everybody to the Winner's Circle Sports Betting Channel. My name is Ross Benjamin, your host, like every Thursday, and it is Thursday, November the 2nd. I'm joined by Mr. Doug Upstone of DocSports.com. We're brought to you by Gamblers World, either gamblersworld.com or gamblersworld.net. If you're looking for the handicappers and the great picks on our site, gamblersworld.net is where you go. If you're looking for videos, gamblersworld.com is where you want to attend. Either way, folks, great content on both sites and gamblersworld.net. By the way, folks, we guarantee all our picks, all single game, multi-game, daily packages, and subscription plans of 30 days or fewer. You must win, you must make a profit, or we will credit your account back the exact amount of what you paid for that particular package on that day. All right, Doug, how are you, my man?
I'm doing well, Ross. It's another big weekend. We got some great games. LSU, Alabama comes to mind, and there's going to be many others. We have one that's might be the last. You're going to talk about it, but the might be the last. Who knows? Forever, but certainly I would think as long as Mike Gundy's at Oklahoma State, it's going to be the last game between Oklahoma and Oklahoma State. So that so there's a really nice variety of games. And starting early with the game, I'll be covering Clemson and Notre Dame.
Yeah, Oklahoma, by the way, folks, Doug's alluding to the fact they're going to the SEC next year. It would be a shame if the rivalry doesn't continue. There's no excuse why they couldn't schedule each other as part of their non-conference schedule. But as Doug pointed out, there might be some issues there, namely with Mike Gundy, the head coach over at Oklahoma State. Anyway, Doug, another service academy game this week with Air Force facing Army. And the total, it opened at 36. It's now down to either 31.5 or 30. And for those of you not familiar with when the service academies face each other, there's a long history in recent years now that's sort of an oxymoron, long history in recent years. About recent years, there's been a lot of unders when these teams face each other. And again, the sports books are adjusting accordingly. We saw Navy and Air Force, go at it earlier this season in Annapolis, and Air Force walked away with a 19-6 win, another easy under. Doug, what do you got?
Yeah, these games, I mean, it's actually in some ways they're hard to handicap. Okay. I mean, it depends how you want to look at it. If you just trust the number, they're really easy to handicap. You just take the under. You don't even think about it, But if you're doing due diligence, you have to at least say, well, is there a possibility, that it could go over? And that's part of the job, is to, dig in and see what you could find. And, it just, in truth, though, it just doesn't make any sense to take an over, the way these teams play. I mean, long possessions of the ball. They get down, if they bog down, they get in, the 25 or 20-yard line or whatever, bogged down where they have to kick field goals. That changes, what happens. I mean, even the Air Force game, I believe, I don't remember exactly how far it was, but wasn't there an interception like for 75 yards or thereabouts, as I recall? So, I mean, that game would have been even more of an under, from that standpoint, other than that one play. So, yeah, it's just the way it goes. And, and speaking of unders, Ross, how about Northwestern and Iowa? That's another beauty that's hanging out there this weekend. They're going to be played at Wrigley Field. And so that should be something. What are your thoughts on that one?
I have no thoughts other than if you're going to watch that game, make yourself, like I always say, make that large pot of coffee, because it's going to be a real snooze fest. The total in that game is 30. I don't know if I recall the total being that low in college football or even the NFL. Go back to the 85 Bears in the NFL when we saw totals that low. But in college football, especially, even with the rule changes this year, where the clock continues now to run on when somebody gets a first down, as opposed to other years where the clock was stopped until the ball was reset on first downs. This is an extremely low total. So again, when is low enough is what I want to ask. I mean, they're inviting you to take the over, but that number's that low for a reason. And my suggestion would be is stay away from both in terms of the total goals. People don't realize Air Force is 8-0. And if I'm
Right.
not mistaken, they're nationally ranked right now. If in the AP poll, if are they ranked, Doug? I'm pretty sure they're ranked.
I don't look at that very often, so I don't
Yeah,
know
I know
offhand.
it doesn't really affect my handicapping as well, but let me give it a quick look. But in any event, Doug, um, the other thing that we wanted to talk about is the totals in the NFL and how low they've been this year comparatively. Yes, Air Force is number 17 in the country at 8-0. Wow. And they are laying 18.5 in this game against Army. So it's not your typical. I know they say throw the records out the window when the service academies face each other, but this is a darn good Air Force team that plays in a pretty good conference. I mean, you can make a strong case, and I think you wouldn't have to get much debate from anybody to say the Mountain West Conference is the sixth best conference in America right now. So, in any event, Doug, the NFL totals, we saw that we see them continue to come down. We see a host of low scoring games and something we have to adjust to. And is it possible we're going to see a turn? I mean, I always say when we see a host of totals that go under, and also the odds makers lowering the numbers to try to entice people to take the overs, I just think that sooner or later it's going to even out. But anyway, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I used to think that way, Ross. I don't anymore. And the thoughts, the one thing I'd like to bring up is that, Ross and I have been doing this for quite some time. And one of the things that struck me is with all these numbers now is that, it's like when we first started, okay, doing NFL handicapping and, and even before then betting, because I mean, all the totals were basically 34 to 44. Okay. Now, obviously it's not every game, but I mean, that's the vast majority of them. And that's how we, in this case, grew up, on the sport, having to look at numbers like that. And that's where the other element that came into play here at that time was key numbers. For example, 17-14 would be 31, 20 to 17, 37, 27-20, or I mean, sorry, 24-20 for 44. Those were all things that were very important that we, had to consider. And, because that's a lot of those games landed on those types of things. Now, as to why the difference, why I don't think this year in particular, Ross, it won't come back. I think that two things are in play. Thing number one is that defenses now attack quarterbacks. Okay. You used to see a lot of teams just drop back into coverage, force the issue. And so with that in mind, if it's 3rd and 7 or 3rd and 8, they're coming. Okay. I mean, it's just every team blitzes now from that standpoint. So I think that's thing number one. Thing number two that comes into play is that coaching has changed. How many times now do we watch coaches pass on simple field goals in order to go for it? Okay. We see it all the time, because of that. So with that, I think that's another factor that's out there. Teams are passing up on points, trying to get touchdowns, but giving up easy field goals in many cases and not getting points on any number of drives. So those to me are the two biggest things that I see where the game is changing, is likely to stay the same for the rest of the year.
Yeah, and I was looking some stuff up while I was listening to you talk, so I don't want you to think that I wasn't being attentive. I heard everything you said,
Yep.
but to just I was running my database, Doug, and NFL games this year have played 75, 48, and 2 to the under. 75, 48, and 2. So just doing some quick math here. 123. 75 slash 123. Yeah, not cooperating with me. But as you could see, you're looking at a high percentage of games that have gone under the total this year. I'm amazed by that. I really didn't realize it was that lopsided,
Yes.
to be quite
And right from
honest
the
with
start.
you.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
wasn't week one like 12-3-1, as I recall?
Yeah, it's actually the percentage is 61%.
Yeah.
Right on the nose. It's 60.9.97,
Yeah.
so 61%. which is extremely high. Again, Doug, I am a proponent of the fact that when it comes to totals, I'm not saying it'll be 50-50 by the end of the year,
Right.
but I will say that you could look at, especially with them bringing the totals down, uh, you could see a lot of overs coming up in the upcoming weeks. So it's just the way I've always looked at things in that regard. I know you don't agree with it this year, and there's rightfully so when you look at the raw data, and you make a compelling case with your analysis that you just gave us.
Yeah, it's just I mean, the are they going to continue to drop? Yes. So that is the 61 going to hold up? Probably not. But I mean, do I see it? 58%? Do I think that's Do I think it's
Yeah,
realistic? Yeah, I do. Just from that
yeah.
standpoint, it's just the nature of how the game is being played and how defenses have caught up with offenses. And so, it's the cat and mouse game. So, there'll be something that will have to change in order to alter that to, let's just say, to bring up scoring in NFL. In all likelihood, I'm not saying they're going to do it after 1 year, but, if the trend were to continue again, the NFL is going to, again, make the game so that scoring is more important because that's what people want to see.
Yeah, and we might be seeing some red flags in the secondary that we didn't see early on for the same type of plays in the second half of the season. I know that I believe, and I don't have the raw data to back up this statement, but just from what I witnessed watching games, I don't recall seeing as many illegal contact downfield penalties as
Mhm.
we've seen in the past. I think they're letting defensive backs have a little bit more leeway in the vertical passing game, especially in one-on-one situations. And they're more leaning toward making the obvious call, where there was a lot of calls in years past that made you scratch your head and wonder how they call that. What's the defensive back supposed to do, kind of thing. I think that we're going to see more of that coming in the upcoming weeks. So keep an eye on that, because there's nothing more irritating when you have the under 3rd and 19 play and the team throws a 7-yard out on third down. It's going to be 4th and 12, and the defense calls for a illegal contact downfield and gives them an automatic first down on a 5-yard penalty.
Yeah,
It's Those are the types of things that sustain drives and drive you crazy if you have the unders, right?
that's for sure. And one other point too that I have thinking about, and I didn't say before, the other difference too is a lot of teams now, especially against elite quarterbacks, throwing quarterbacks, they play cover one. And so when you
Yeah.
do that, you got that high safety in the middle of the field ready to roam
Yeah.
either side. So that's taken away a lot of the quick scores, from that standpoint. One thing that, and I don't know if it's a record, but it seems like it's on a record pace, is the number of pick sixes this year. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm in a fantasy league that's one of the things that actually it's my fantasy league, but we keep track of. And so in terms of points, if your quarterback throws an interception, that counts as minus points, just like like in the scoring aspect of it. And I don't know if it's on a record pace. I haven't seen or heard anything above it, but boy, and for me doing it, keeping track of it on a weekly basis, there's been a lot of those this year.
Yeah. I mean, the Pittsburgh Steelers come to mind. They have 11 touchdowns all season long through that would be 7 games. And 2 of them have come on defense. And
Right.
both of those came in the game against Cleveland.
How about Dallas? I mean,
Yeah,
look
same
at
thing.
yeah. I mean, they
Yeah.
got a ton of touchdowns.
Yeah.
In a
And
variety of ways.
I was listening to Josh Allen's press conference today because, from Western New York, I follow those types of things. And he was, they were asking him questions along the line that we're talking about right now. And he had admitted, he said, the way defenses are playing right now, just not against me, against everybody, it forces quarterbacks to be more patient and take the underneath stuff.
Yep.
And they bank on the fact that quarterbacks are going to, at some point, get impatient and want to throw the ball vertically and into double coverage. And that speaks to exactly what you were trying to say earlier along
Mhm.
those lines anyway. when it comes to cover one defenses. So,
Yes.
there you go. It's point well taken. All right, let's get to the meat and potatoes, Doug. Couple good games we're talking about, as Doug touched upon earlier. He'll be looking at Notre Dame and Clemson. I'll be looking at the rivalry they call Bedlam, Oklahoma and Oklahoma State. Before we get to that, folks, if you have not subscribed to our YouTube channel, I would ask you to take a second to do so. You're watching this podcast. Obviously, you're interested in sports betting. Obviously, you've come back a time or two to watch what we have to say. So if that's the case, it costs you absolutely nothing to subscribe. I know when we say the word subscribe, usually there's a connotation with dollar signs next to it. Well, that's not the case here. So if you subscribe, it's absolutely free to do so. There's no hidden agenda. There's no strings attached. And then if you take a couple seconds more to go into your YouTube settings and you click on that notification alert bell for the Winner's Circle Sports Betting channel, you'll be notified immediately upon us publishing any of our sports betting podcast right here on our great channel. And if you're on your PC, you'll see a WC logo in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. If you're on your smart TV or your mobile device, which the majority of you are, statistics don't lie. I look at our back end all the time. Just click that black subscribe button and you're all set to go. All right, Doug, Notre Dame and Clemson. This looked like a game of national implications when the schedules came out, a game a lot of people were looking forward to and had circled, but all of a sudden it's, I wouldn't say to the fan bases it's not as important, but it certainly doesn't have the importance we thought it might have had weeks ago. Anyway, Notre Dame right now is a 3-point favorite. The total 44.5. What do you got, Doug?
Yeah, well, and there's something else that also backs up what you're saying in terms of it losing its luster. If you looked at the rotation numbers for this game, it was the third from the bottom. So obviously the intent was to have this be a night game. Okay, initially somewhere, okay, from that standpoint. And here it's gotten bumped up to a noon start on ABC Eastern time. And anyways, now Clemson, mediocre, only way to can put it. 4-4 this season. A lot of things. You probably have heard about Dabo Swinney's press conference the other day where he went off on somebody that had called in, very frustrated. A lot of different things going on within the context of the program. My take is this, and I mentioned one aspect of it, but I'll mention more of it here. They're not recruiting this, the same types of players that they used to. When you used to watch Clemson play, they would have NFL receivers. There are several of them right now in the NFL. Okay, they don't have those guys. When you used to watch the Clemson defense, even though it's still quite good, they used to have 8 guys that they rotated in and out, and 3 of those guys every single year for about a 5 or 6 year period were NFL quality players. That is no longer the case again right now. Offensive line, Ross, I mean, this is subjective from very many points of view, but they have not had a top 3 offensive line in the ACC in at least 5 years. Okay, I'm talking the ACC. I'm not talking the country, I'm talking the ACC. So all of those things point to where we are with Clemson at this point. Now, Notre Dame. If you ask Notre Dame, and I connected with the program, and good friends. Otherwise, if you had told them coming in this game, they could go 10-2 this season and have a chance to, go to a Super 6 bowl game, they would have taken it. Because among the many things, the over-under for the season win total for Notre Dame was 8.5. Okay, so from that standpoint, sure, was the lot, but once they started playing, expectations rose. The team looked better than what was thought coming in, and that loss to Ohio State kind of changed things. In a lot of ways, and then the Louisville loss really, subjective something different here. So in this matchup, how I'm looking at this game, first of all, I would consider the under. That's right off the bat. I think Clemson has the ability to stay in the game with their defense. The running game can carry them to a point at which means fewer possessions, fewer clock stoppages. No question, the Tigers are going to be fired up for this one. the last thing they want to do is lose this game and be 4-5 and have to win 2 out of their last 3 just to be bowl eligible. Forget about anything else, So that's a major thing. Cade Klubnik has been solid, but you know what? Solid doesn't cut it at Clemson anymore. Okay, that's not what's unexpected. And solid quarterback play is something that is what average or slightly above average teams have, not great teams. Notre Dame realizes, you know what? For them, this game, it's either a Super 6 bowl if they win or the Gator Bowl if they lose. Okay, at 9-3. I mean, that's just the way it's going to be. So this one, I'm looking at what I think Notre Dame has the ability to win the line of scrimmage 2/3 of the time in this game. So what does that mean? So I think they'll be able to move the chains on offense and to prevent Clemson from continually moving the chains on defense. I absolutely cannot ignore the fact that Notre Dame is 30-1 straight up against the ACC and has a 22-9 ATS record in those games. I think it's going to be close, Ross, but Notre Dame -3, I'll say they win 24-20, which also means there's going to be an under, but officially going to go with the Fighting Irish to get the job done on Saturday.
All right, Doug likes Notre Dame lay the 3 at Clemson on Saturday. I have a lean toward the under in this game. I'm not sure if I'm going to use that as a members play. Probably not, but if you just look at the raw data, I mean, I'm going to get some people who are going to chime in right now. And when I say that Notre Dame isn't exactly an explosive type of offense, they're going to come back at me and say, they put up 58 on Pitt last week. Okay. Cast that aside, folks. Their style of offense, they don't have a game breaker on the outside. They still use the tight end as a primary target. They have a solid running game. They're very good at controlling the clock. And if they're going to put up points like 58 against Pitt, they're going to break off a lot of long runs. I do not see that happening against the type of defense that Clemson puts on the field, even though, as Doug alluded to, it's not the same quality or dominating defense we've seen from Clemson in years past. And, quarterback Klubnik, like you said, Doug, he's having a solid year, but he's not Trevor Lawrence. He's not Deshaun Watson. He might not even be DJU, who's having a fine season over at Oregon State. So, I have a lean toward the under here. And I think that Notre Dame is by far the best 2-loss team in the country. The expectations went sky high, and then they lost to Ohio State. I don't think that was the killer. The killer was losing to Louisville.
Right.
Because if they come into this game with just one loss and with a chance of running the table, we'd be talking about a team that's going to be in the college football playoff. I mean, their strength of schedule is strong, for lack of a better phrase. So we'll see. But Doug likes Notre Dame -3. I don't disagree with him, and I'll have a small lean. Again, folks, it's probably not going to be a pay selection, but my opinion is I'm looking at a 24-10 type game, and I think this game goes under the total. All right, I'm going to look at Oklahoma and Oklahoma State. That game will be played in Stillwater. And like Doug alluded to, might be the last time we see these two teams play for a while, and that would be an absolute shame. But right now, Oklahoma is a 6-point favorite on the road. We talked about Oklahoma State earlier this week. And this is a team that's gone 4-0 straight up in ATS in their last 4 games. Since they're losing at home to South Alabama and then following that up with a loss at Iowa State, it seems like the tables have turned for the Cowboys. They've been a whole different team, especially on the offensive side of the ball. And raise your hand if you saw that coming. Now put it down because you're a liar, because they look absolutely anemic early in the year offensively. Now, Oklahoma's coming off their first loss of the season, 38-33, heartbreaking fashion at Kansas. Remember, Kansas is a nationally ranked team and a pretty good team. However, they have an excellent opportunity if they win this game to win out and still be part of the college football playoff at the end of the year. I know that's a hard thing to fathom right now because they're coming off a loss, but at the end of the day, you'd be hard-pressed to not take a Big 12 champion with one loss in the college football playoff. Now, I'm not saying that's going to occur, But in terms of coming off a loss and being in a bad frame of mind, I don't think that's going to be the case here with Oklahoma. I think that they know if they're able to run the table from here on out, they're going to be a serious contender to be playing in that Final Four. Also, this will be the toughest of the remaining 4 regular season games for Oklahoma. So they know that if they win this game, their probability of winning out and getting to the Big 12 championship game is going to be extremely high. This is like I said, Oklahoma State 4-0 straight up in ATS in their last 4. But the thing is here, folks, in those 4 games, despite them winning, I mentioned their offense has been very good, but their defense is still allowing during this 4-game win streak 448 yards per game. How they've been bailed out and only allowed 25 points per contest during that run is because they forced 10 turnovers. Now, Oklahoma did turn the ball over 3 times last week at Kansas, but when you look at their overall resume, the Sooners have only committed 8 turnovers in 8 games. So to depend on turnovers to halt this Oklahoma offense that is very explosive, folks, I think you're asking for trouble. And I'm going to say that Oklahoma is going to bounce back in a big way here. And I know I'm going with the contrarian mindset because a lot of the public right now is jumping all over Oklahoma State as a home underdog. The Red Hot Cowboys with the thinking Oklahoma coming off that disheartening loss. I'm not going to think that way. I'm going to go the opposite way. I'm going to go with Oklahoma here, minus the 6 over Oklahoma State, Doug.
Yeah, on this one, unfortunately, in this one aspect, I'm going to have to pass, Ross, because this is one of my premium plays, at the Doug Upstone page at Doc Sports. But I will say, I'll throw some things at you. I'll do my Kirk Herbstreit impersonation, on this one. So I'll give something without saying something. What I'm looking at here is, I think that if Oklahoma is to win and cover, they have the ability to do so 2 ways. They can do it if the total goes over or if the total goes under. But with Oklahoma State, I think that the only way that they can win and cover is if the total goes over, from that standpoint. So that's kind of how, if you're the person's watching this, in terms of how to look at this game, I think those are the key factors as to what to consider. So if you don't think that Oklahoma Oklahoma State, can score enough points, to match what Oklahoma possibly can do, even though Oklahoma's defense pretty much has been nearly as bad, at least in terms of points allowed, or actually been worse in points allowed than what Oklahoma State's has been. I think that's kind of the key factor here. So myself, that's how I would, come to look at this game, especially if you're looking at the side.
And that's why we attempt to make you a smarter sports bettor today than yesterday, for reasons just as that, where Doug is not actually giving you a play, but he's giving you a way to look at an angle in which to look at that game and to simplify your decision. If you think it's going to be a high scoring game, he believes that's the only way that Oklahoma State will cover this game or even win the game. Okay. If it's a low scoring game, it does not favor Oklahoma State. And the way Oklahoma has consistently put up points throughout the course of the year and consistently generated a lot of offense. I mentioned Oklahoma State over in this 4-game win streak. They've been terrific offensively, but they haven't done it all year long. So when it comes to consistency on offense, Oklahoma holds the edge there. However, you can't disregard a team that's red hot and all of a sudden it's found their way offensively as well. Yeah. But I am going to go with Oklahoma minus the 6 at Oklahoma State. Mr. Upstone from DocSports.com, he likes Notre Dame minus the 3 over Clemson. Doug, speaking of DocSports.com, I'm sure you have a big weekend lined up, considering you have to have all your plays up by 6 p.m. tonight. So tell the folks what's going on.
Yes, I will. And I will also tell the folks something else from earlier in the week, the video that Ross and I did on Monday. You can disregard my play, because I gave out Duke at minus 12.5, and it appears Riley Leonard is not going to play because that line is down to 6.5. So from that standpoint, so Ross gets all all the attention, all the deserving attention, by the way, for his Monday play. So just focus on Ross this week in terms of looking at that video on Monday if you haven't looked at it already. But anyway, so yeah, as far as other things going on, football weekend, I got 8 plays going on. Obviously, as I said, Oklahoma and Oklahoma State will be one of them. It won't be my biggest play of the week, but it certainly is going to be on the card. So looking forward to that, coming off a 6-2-1 week last week in football across the board, 4-2 in college football, 2-0-1 in the NFL. So looking to duplicate or improve upon that this upcoming week with those 8 plays, which include 2 best bets. NHL, if you happen to see this video on Thursday, I had a winner in the NHL on yesterday, Wednesday, with Dallas, and I'm coming back with a 7-unit best bet tonight. I've got a play I like even better than the one I had last night, so that will be available at my page. And then plus, we got the NBA starting up, and then what is there on Monday, Ross? What is it? 280,000 college basketball games, I think there is on the
something like that. Yeah,
somewhere in that neighborhood. Might be a few
Laverne
less.
and Shirley University is playing at Oklahoma. Yeah, never mind. Go ahead.
All of those. So college basketball starts on Monday. I would say be selective. When you look, you might, or if you want to handicap the board, I would recommend starting as soon as this video is over. Okay. If you can find some lines. So that's what I got going on. How about you?
Doug, I had a laugh at one of the comments when we mentioned college basketball with on one of the shows with Jesse and Sean, because Sean puts out a ton of college basketball. Right. And one of the comments was, was from one of the subscribers, which we always welcome the comments. But when I said I had a laugh, it's not because I'm making fun of him, because he had a legitimate point, but he alluded to the fact that he has to put aside some time to look at the transfer portal in college basketball. So, you're talking about 363 teams in the transfer portal. Put aside some time. How about put aside a week at least, and about 8 hours a day to look at the transfer portal? Folks, it's good to stay up on things when it comes to that. And I get it if you're a college basketball aficionado, avid college basketball follower, but to get caught up in all that stuff with players, it's all incorporated into the line, folks. It's about beating a number, okay, at the end of the day. So you could spend your time much better in the coming weeks by trying to beat a number than to keep up on who's new to the roster and whatever have you. Because if we know about it, the odds makers do as well. Anyway, in terms of me, I do have the winner in the NFL game tonight. If you see this video in time, we are recording. It's currently 3:37 p.m. Eastern time. Our podcast, I should say, will be up around 4:15. So you'll have plenty of time if you see it. I have the winner in the Pittsburgh, Tennessee game tonight. I also have an NHL winner tonight as well, and a winner in the NBA, and also tomorrow's college football winner between the game between Boston College and Syracuse. So you could check that out. College football 31-19 since September 9th, which is good for 62%. College football, NFL combined 53-32, also good for 62%. That's since September 14th. My NFL since week 2, 23-13, 64%. My NBA, I got off to a 1-2 start so far this year. But if you go back to the end of last year, specifically speaking, April the 26th, 26-12, 68% in the NBA. And in all sports, folks, since August the 4th, 129-87, which is good for 60%. That's in all sports. That's all right there at gamblersworld.net. That's where you could find me. You can invest into 3-day, 7-day, 30-day packages, or buy my picks on a daily basis, whatever you prefer. I would highly suggest, folks, you heard those records. I don't know why, if you're betting on sports, you're just depending on free pick videos, because these are great. We want to win our free picks. Doug does well on his free picks, but I'm sure Doug will agree. When we look at the menu, and we give you 5 or 6 plays on a Saturday in college football, these free picks are not included in those for the most part. On occasion, especially if we give out a play early in the week, and you heard Doug say on Monday, he gave out Duke minus 12.5. That's exactly why I don't put up, I can't speak for Doug, but I don't put up college football picks early because of situations such as those, where now Riley Leonard's not playing. There's a big disparity between Riley Leonard and the guy who's his backup. The line is moved accordingly down to 6.5. So those are the types of things why I don't give out picks early in the week. And but there are times when I do give out picks early in the week that I end up using them on the card on Saturday because after qualifying everything later in the week, they still look like one of a favorable play to me. In any event, Doug at DocSports.com, Ross at gamblersworld.net. And Doug, I hope you have a great weekend, my man. And there's a like button underneath. Tell the folks what you might want them to do with that like button.
I'd press it. Just press the like button. I think you're good. I think that if you do that, we will. It'd be very much appreciated.
Yeah, absolutely. Just press that like button. Just a small token of your appreciation for the work, time, and effort we put into giving you a quality sports betting podcast each and every day, Monday through Friday, all 6 shows each week. We all put in a great effort here, folks, and just hitting that like button goes a long way in showing us your appreciation. Until the next time, for Doug Upstone and Ross Benjamin, take care and God bless, folks.